Hello everybody, welcome to Dakman Productions and welcome to the Great Lakes Large Scale Expo here at the Metroplex Expo in Girard, Ohio. Yes, I'm in Ohio, imagine that. So I did the York show for the week, then the week after did a whole bunch of videos all week long. Then the next week after that went to the Great Scale Train show and put out videos the week after that. And now I'm here in Ohio. And I know what you guys are thinking. Dakman's a robot. He's got to be a robot. But at any rate, we're going to check out this show. It is a large scale show, so it's dedicated to all G-scale garden trains and outdoor trains. So let's check them out. Okay, we're here at the Large Scale Live booth with Andrew Fitch, as you guys know him as Mr. Pick the Fid on the YouTube channel. There you go. And Large Scale Live, if you don't know already, that is a show, live show. They talk about G-Scale products. They have guests on, how-tos, all kinds of fun stuff. So make sure you tune into that show. Great show. And so, Andrew, first of all, I want to say congratulations on a very successful show, and also congratulations on pulling us off. You did an excellent job. Just wanted to say, if I haven't already, I'm proud of you, of what you accomplished and how far you came with the Large Scale Live show, and now moving up to doing these this type of show. I mean, it's amazing what you've done. And as you guys may have remembered, you know, I started off with Andrew, but you know, I knew that he needed to grow, and my channel was growing, and you know, I had to leave of absence so he could grow properly. And Nico as well, you guys see me interview him. Both of them together are super, and they've done such a wonderful job of taking the show in places where I personally couldn't. And just wanted to say, you know, it's been a pleasure. You know, and I also appreciate you bringing me aboard like this, and videoing the show and helping you out like this.
Well, I appreciate everything. You know, I also knew I wasn't going to have time to do this. Who better to cover a train show than you?
Yeah.
Plus, you're my good friend. You know, I always enjoy your company. It was nice to have you come out. I'm happy that the show went as well as it did. Everybody had good things to say.
Yes.
Vendors have said they want to come back next year already. I've had people as they're leaving saying that, you know, they're looking forward to coming back again, and they like the selection of stuff. The place was full. You know, and for me, everybody says you got to take time to enjoy the show. I am. As I'm walking around, I see people smiling, they're happy, like they're excited. That's what I enjoy.
Yeah.
You know, my goal was to at least break even on my expenses for this. I'm pretty sure I did that. If I made anything beyond that, I don't know yet, but
right.
It wasn't a profit-making venture for me. I wanted to do a nice show that focused on large scale that everybody was going to enjoy, and it seems like that was successful.
Yeah, I had a lot of feedback as well, and you know, I can't imagine the amount of planning that you had behind the scenes. I'm sure this was a great undertaking.
A lot more than I realized. Thankfully, it was all like kind of dropped on me in phases. You know, I had time to deal with this crisis, and then okay, we're good. Nope, here's another one.
Right.
You know, instead of all of them, if I would have had everything that I had to work through all at once, I would have been like, oh, this is way too much. But you know, the first year is pretty much, you know, in the books at this point.
Right.
Next year, honestly, should be that much easier because there's a lot of things already figured out.
Yep.
Things that maybe need modified a little bit, but you know, thankfully there was no major issues or anything I could find. I mean, so yeah.
Everybody was pretty happy. You know, the vendors, the people coming on board to visit the show. You know, the clubs that were here on display. Everybody had everything good to say, including with the food here today. Was really well priced.
Yeah, that's what I had several vendors. They're like, we really appreciate the decently priced food. You know, a lot of times you go, and I'm not judging anybody, but you know, the prices are up there a little bit because you're in the menu, and you know, we wanted to make it affordable for everybody. I mean, we wanted, more importantly, you know, you want people to stay here.
Yes.
You know, if you know, they're like, well, I need something to eat. And, oh, we'll go down the street, and then they might be like, hey, you know what, I'm not going back. You go over, you sit down, you get something to eat, and they're like, hey, I see this thing over here, like, I'm going to go look at that. Or
right.
And I saw a lot of people just hanging around and hanging out. I mean, I saw a lot of people leaving the first day saying how great it was, and I saw that. I'm glad you enjoyed it. And I'm like, so you're heading home now? And they're like, oh, no, we're coming back tomorrow. I even saw some people that, you know, paid for one day, you know, like planned to come for one day, and they came back and paid to get in the second day.
Wow.
So yeah, it was really great.
Yeah.
It was.
Yeah, and I was seeing people coming out of here with packages and trains, and people were actually buying today. And the 3 or 4 vendors that I talked to, all had good things to say, how much money they made, and so forth and so on.
And then of course all the people seemed to be happy. I mean, we had what, like 45 door prizes. It kept our announcer busy on the hour.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember. It was like 4 or 5 things per hour he was giving away.
That was amazing. How many door prizes were actually donated to? And I wish to thank, while I'm on video, thank those who donated the door prizes to the show, and it made the show that much better for people that have that experience of actually being able to win something.
And I don't have the full list in front of me at the moment.
That's
I don't
fine.
want to leave anybody out.
Yep.
But to everybody that donated, thank you very much. And I really didn't even have to ask for a lot of the stuff. A lot of it just, hey, we want to donate something, and I think a lot of them just, well, some of them even told me like they appreciated what they saw I was doing. There were other ones that saw that, I was giving them, PR on Facebook. I was making a nice post for them, thanking them for donating door prizes and that.
Yeah, you poured a lot of work into that, too.
I did. And honestly, like, as I'm standing here, I'm thinking, like, I could take a break tomorrow.
Right.
The question is, how long do you take a break before, you start working on next year, which that's already rolling around in my mind.
Okay. That's good. I'm sure people are going to be asking soon, because this was a very, very successful show.
I mean, as far as the plans are at the moment, there's going to be a show next year. That is the plan, unless something unforeseen would happen. But we have a couple of weekends in mind, kind of some soft holds in place. Right now, we're planning on doing it here again at the Metroplex Expo Center. Although, some of the interest we've had, some other clubs maybe in that, and I'm like, do I need a bigger venue? And it's like, well, a lot of things to think about.
Yeah, that's good that you're already thinking about growing just in your second year, so that'd be cool.
I didn't expect to be this big the first year. Like, it started out, I was only going to use 1/3 of this space, and I filled it up rather quickly. And I'm like, well, okay, let's, we'll take another 1/3 of it, and pretty soon I was calling them, and I'm like, just give me the whole place. I'm going to need it. I mean, we had 2 large club displays. We had my switching puzzle layout. Columbus Club set up it was like a 10 by 8 or so, but really nice layout. I told them, I said I liked it. It's a good example of what you can do in a smaller place. The Susquehanna Club did a beautiful, fully landscaped garden layout out there. It was amazing. The Lakeshore Club, brought their modular layout down. They run a lot of fun trains. I didn't get a chance to stand there and watch when I saw other people's videos. They had a slinky train running around.
Yes.
I'm like, there's a lot of people that get into the real fine details of modeling in that.
Yeah.
And they like to have a lot of fun, and kids enjoy that. And that was the other thing with this was, we had, making trains fun. Steve and Linda Junks were here with their kids' clinics. They had the switching puzzle layout. Jonathan Straczynski had his Hopper Topper challenge over there.
Yes.
We try to get more interactive things going so that, we want to cater to the large scale enthusiasts, but we also want to add things that's going to bring in the general public that are maybe curious a little bit. They're not going to pay to get into just a show that's for buying and selling, but if you give them things to interact with or stuff to look at, you get them in the door and they get an interest. We gave away 3 starter sets to kids this year.
Oh wow!
We had 3 sets. One was from LGB, and again, I'm sorry I don't have the full list of all the sponsors to name everybody, but one was from LGB, one was from Dave Peters, and one was one actually I picked up. That we made sure that we had a special kids giveaway, so they went to them. And the last one we just gave away here a bit ago, they were trying to lug it out because they had the set and they had a couple cars. And I had a few things on the white elephant table that hadn't sold. And I'm like, I picked up one over and I said, here's a few more things you can carry out with you. And they're like, okay. But that's where it gets started at, you know.
Right, exactly.
So yeah, but this is about multiple different things. But none of it is about me. You know, just like with the live stream, that's never been about me. The live stream, it's about the people and the hobby, and the relationships you make. I got a lot of good friends I've made through all the stuff I do. That's all it's about.
Yeah.
You know, that is all it's about.
And once again, you did a good job. Looking forward to your next live stream and future shows.
Thank you, Sean.
All right, we'll catch you later.
All right.
All right, bye.
Bye.